Sir, welcome to COASTER-net Uncut. Hello, Raptor fans, and welcome to COASTER-net Uncut. In the last few weeks, you may have noticed that Danny Miller has been unfairly and unjustly been making fun of the greatest steel roller coaster in the world, nay, greatest roller coaster in the universe. So tonight, on this very special edition of COASTER-net Uncut, the Raptor fans of the world unite, and we get our revenge on Danny Miller. Yes, you may not realize this, but Danny Miller actually believes that Raptor is the greatest roller coaster in the world as well. You may not know that every time he makes fun of Raptor, it's not because he hates the ride. It's not because he thinks it's boring or painful like he would pretend to say, but in fact it's because he secretly is in love with Raptor. And as you will see here tonight, the Raptor fans of the world will unite, and we will take Danny Miller's visage off the screen and replace it with only a statement that fits Danny Miller's true feelings about the greatest roller coaster in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special edition of COASTER-net Uncut.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of COASTER-net Uncut. I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois, joined once again by my very good friend, Mr. Danny Miller. Danny, how's it going tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, Andy. You know what? We're kind of in that weird in-between time right now where it's still the off season, but you can smell the on season coming, as some people have said. It's coming because track pieces are going into place, rides are being complete, we're seeing construction updates every day on some of the new rides, and of course, the inspiration for tonight's show, we're seeing some of the trains and the cars finally starting to be delivered, and they're starting to look very pretty and shiny, and soon they're going to have people in them, and they're going to have water dummies at first, hopefully, and then they're going to have the people in them. So I'm excited because the season is close. 1 week from today that we're recording on February 17th, 1 week from today, probably at this exact time, which is about 10 o'clock at night, I will be in an airplane somewhere over Virginia, probably, in between Philadelphia and Knoxville, on my way to Dollywood for Dollywood opening weekend for Lightning Rod, and, hopefully Lightning Rod. Yeah. And then, all the other coasters, fabulous Coaster Crew event, Coaster Radio meetup, season pass holder preview on Friday the 18th. Some mountain coasters, maybe even a NASCAR Speed Park coaster credit. So lots of stuff going on that weekend. But, before all that happens, we got to make sure the rides get done first. So, as I alluded to, the inspiration for tonight is recently this week we've seen the Mako trains for yes. SeaWorld Orlando unveiled, which look fantastic. We saw the Cobra's Curse cars earlier tonight. You and I came across those. And about 2 weeks ago, we saw the Lightning Rod trains kind of get unveiled. So that kind of got us thinking, let's talk about some really nifty-looking trains. And we're not talking about restraints. We're not talking about the design of the train itself. We're talking purely about the aesthetics. And when you look at the coaster car, you say, ooh, that's really, really pretty.
Absolutely. Because I think Mako really, like, at first I'm like, Mako, it doesn't look all that great, like you at first view, but then you start like analyzing it and you realize, I think the coolest part about Mako is that it's a completely new custom mold, but it kind of takes the classic B&M hyper mold and Giga mold that they've been using and kind of transforms it into this Mako shark. Plus, when you look at other pictures, you can see, it kind of has like this two-tone paint job to it. It just looks really, really sleek. And if you haven't seen it yet, we're throwing up some pictures now, but we also have a really cool video from the park on our YouTube channel that you can go check out and see the whole unveiling of the coaster and some thoughts on it. And it just looks really, really cool. The lightning rod cars, I was kind of like, a lot of people were like freaking out about like the paint jobs with the fire, but I'm kind of like, I don't really know if I like it all that much.
Yeah, see, I thought the lightning rod cars looked really cool. I really like them. Obviously they fit the theme well. I mean, they look like a hot rod. I think that maybe with what you're talking about with lightning rod is the fact that in the rendering back in August when they announced the ride, they were exactly what they were supposed to be. So they weren't as
Mm-hmm.
like surprising. Whereas with Mako, we never really saw a
No.
close up of the train. Like we saw the POV where you saw the top of it, but you never really saw what the train was supposed to look like. So when they unveiled it and it was like, ooh, that looks really cool. Like
Yeah.
it looks like the Ark. And maybe that's where this first topic comes in. I think it was surprising because it looks so nice because we didn't know what to expect. We were like, oh, it's going to be your typical nose and maybe they'll have the logo on it and they'll have some colors. Maybe they might have like a decal wrap around it like we've seen in some. But I think the immediate connection you made to kind of get into some of the rides we're going to talk about, the immediate connection you made was, wow, that looks a lot like Diamondback, where the
Yeah.
the front of the car looks like the snake head, and it's got the teeth coming down, it's
Mm-hmm.
got the eye folded. And the thing with Diamondback is, a lot of people talk about Leviathan. Leviathan has the eyes and it's got the scales, but Leviathan's is just a wrap. They actually did testing before they put those on there. So they just had the colored trains running around, and then they put that wrap on there afterwards. Whereas Diamondback, it actually has like the eye bulges molded, the
Mm-hmm.
teeth are molded, and then they have a wrap for like the scales. But it's Mako is kind of molding the entire thing, and they're just straight up painting it. It doesn't appear as if there's any sort of decal wrapped around it, which is like that extra added layer of detail. So I think that's really cool. And the thing that I pointed out to you was I like the Mako trains a little bit better than Diamondbacks because Diamondback looks really nice. It
Yeah.
always has. The thing with Diamondback is the front of a B&M hypercoaster train isn't really a snake shape,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the lines of the hypercoaster nose and the point really lend itself to the lines of a Mako shark, and it has
Yeah.
that streamlined look with just a few alterations like we've seen on the Mako train. Really makes it look like a shark in terms of the lines and the aerodynamics, not just the physical color and the physical appearance of it. The shape of it goes along really nicely with it too. So I think that's going to look really cool. Storming down that track at about 70 miles an hour, I think that's going to look really slick.
Absolutely. And we kind of got talking about, the whole point is that, what other coasters out there have really cool zero cars or lead cars or whatever you want to call them, what other coasters out there? And there's so many really cool ones, to a lesser extent, moving over in Florida a little bit. I think Dragon Challenge is unique. And there you go.
Ooh.
Dragon Challenge is unique in the fact that it has a little bit of like the teeth thing on the front going on, a little bit of the dragon theme, but then the front cars, the front seats are actually a completely different color. They're actually that pinkish color to make it look like a mouth. So that's kind of cool. I wouldn't go far out of my way to say that it's amazing because I think some of the other ones that we're going to talk about tonight are really, really impressive. And I think staying with Florida once again, I think Cheetah Hunt has got to be on that list too.
Yeah. Well, I think in general, I think you see, I think you could talk about a lot of the bush parks, or at least a good chunk of the bush rides. I think they've done a good job of kind of giving that little extra thing that just makes it look really cool. I mean, if you want to talk about the bush rides just in
Mm-hmm.
general here, well, you talked about Dueling Dragons first and foremost, or Dragon Challenge. You talked about how the harnesses on the front row on each side are pink so that it looks like the tongue, the inside of the
Yeah.
mouth of the dragon. and they also have the teeth on the front car hood, and then the rest is just more of the dragon scales, as opposed to it has the eyes and the teeth on the front one. And at least on Fire Dragon, I don't know, on the Ice Dragon, I think it has similar thing. On the front cars, in between the seats, the steel beam that comes up in between the rider's legs actually has claws on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a neat thing too. But so Cheetah Hunt is a really nice one, as you mentioned, because you have that formed cheetah head on as the zero car. But again, kind of like Diamondback, it does the front of an Intamin coaster car doesn't so much lend itself to the lines of it. So it looks a little bit forced and a little bit awkward, but they still did a really nice job with it when you see that run track.
I think Cheetah Hunt is more almost artistic with what's done, and it kind of fits the whole ride, because if you think of that whole first figure 8 section with the flags and the poles sticking out, it's a very artistic ride from the sense it's, there's a lot on there that's there for aesthetics that serves no purpose with steel.
An abstract concept of what a cheetah is supposed to look like, because a
Absolutely.
cheetah's not going to be in the air or whatever that height is. But you're right. It is more sort of an abstract artistic feel, but I think it's done very well. To mention some other rides, we talked about, Mako is obviously at a Busch Park being at SeaWorld, and then, we just talked about Cheetah Hunt. Montu used to had some nice hieroglyphics on its wheel hoods. I don't think both trains have them anymore. One of the trains has a more generic paint job, kind of like Talon or a Raptor, or like Patriot has with the stars on it. But the wheel hoods on the B&M inverts are a good example. A lot of those have some nifty looking art. I know Alpengeist is one that we heard about, because those are the wheel hoods are custom airbrushed. So each hood looks a little different. And then the Alpengeist trains also have the skis on the back of the seats, which is kind of cool. Also, looking at some of the Busch Parks, look at the two Mantas. The two Mantas, the Zero car on both Mantas, the flying one in Orlando and the one in San Diego, you see the actual Manta Ray on the front, which I think on the flying one in particular looks a lot cooler, because it actually looks like a big Manta Ray, and then each row of cars actually has a smaller grouping of manta rays, so it looks like a big, mama or papa manta ray flying with the little ones behind it. Which is a nice little attention to detail. The San Diego one also has that Zero car that looks like the big manta ray, and they use that to the advantage of the ride when they do the wing dip. And they kind of make it seem like those outstretched wings are what's making the water plumes shoot out, which is really a nice effect. And then at SeaWorld Texas, again, going back to the inverted wheel hoods, you have all those teeth on the Great White. I mean, it kind of looks like the fighter plane, because I think Afterburn at Carowinds does that, where it has like the fighter plane kind of style thing. So those are, I think the Busch Parks in general are a good place to start with, because on a lot of their rides, you see even Apollo's Chariot has like the carving plate, the Busch Gardens plate on the front of the Apollo's Chariot train. It's a standard B&M train, but they have the neat little carvings on it. So I think Busch in general has done a pretty good job of making their trains just that little extra thing for Bolton. With the headlights that light up at night, but the neat thing is the headlights go off when you're inside the Black Forest, even at night, and then they come back on when you get launched out. So that's a neat little effect as well. But I think the Verbolten trains look awesome, and the fact that the attention to detail of having each train be a different color, and then they each have their own license plate, I think is a nice little attention. Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm had the same thing. They each have their own license plate, and you have the hot rod look that's kind of connecting back to Lightning Rod as well. The hot rod thing you've seen done before, so I think that's why you weren't as much impressed with that as you were at the Mako ones.
Yeah.
But so that's a good place to start. I think. What else are ones that catch your eye?
I would be completely remiss if I didn't mention one of the best cars ever, and that's Raptor. at Gardaland.
Well, and this brings a good topic here, the wing coasters, because I
Yeah.
think we've seen recently the wing coasters offer a great opportunity to showcase some architecture and some sculpture and some artistic, um, some artistic. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Some artistic feeling that you don't
flair.
get in. You have so much extra crap in the middle there where you don't have a whole lot of extra crap on floorless trains or inverted. Kind of just the wheel hoods is kind of all you have there. On the wing coasters, you have that big carriage in the middle, which looks really ugly when there's nothing on top of it. But if you do something really cool with it, like Raptor at Gardaland has this really funky looking creature that's like green and gray and brown, and it makes it feel like the train is a living thing.
Yeah.
I
think it's really cool because it like spreads out over the whole thing. So like you know how on the wing coasters you have that centerpiece, the center spine running up and down the train, that's completely themed out. The whole wing area underneath the train is completely themed out. That's something you don't really see on a lot of the wing coasters, that usually you have like a centerpiece in the middle, but that's about it. Like you think about Gatekeeper, it has a few wing things on the side of the seats, but for the most part, it's just a center beam connecting the trains together, whereas Raptor actually has a completely formed, piece that goes over everything.
Artistic style to them, whereas Gatekeepers is just standard seat back. Same thing with like Swarm at Thorpe Park and Fleur de Demon at Hyde Park kind of have the same feel, where they look similar to Raptor. Raptor's is done a little bit better because it does cover the entire wing, but they have this really sort of apocalyptic creature theme to them. Gatekeepers looks nice with the eyes that light up occasionally, sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think it's on a lesser scale. You don't have as much of the details and the carvings as you do on ones like Raptor. If you look at a picture of a Raptor train, it's really very detailed, and they go very in depth with the sculpting and the molding of that, whereas Gatekeeper has very simple lines. The other two that have very simple lines but look very, very nice in terms of the wing coasters are Wild Eagle with the bald eagles, which look really cool, and then Parrot Coaster over in China, which was called Flying Over the Rainforest for a year. But it kind of like how most people know that Wild Eagle has the bald eagles in the middle. With the wings that kind of stretch over the two seats, whereas Parrot Coaster is a macaw or a parrot, and it's got all these beautiful colors, and the vest is a bright red, the handlebars are a bright green, the lap thing is a bright blue. It's all sorts of really nice colors that really go, and bright reds and yellows and greens and blues on the bird itself, and then you have the bright green track with the dirt brown supports, which I think helps bring it all together. So I think the wing coasters offer a good opportunity to do that too. I was actually a little surprised that Holiday World didn't do a little bit more with their trains. Now their trains look really cool. The bright blue, the bright ocean blue with the yellow accents, I think looks really cool against the orange track. But I was a little surprised that maybe they didn't do a little bit more with the bird theme, but maybe they wanted to go for a bright color since they were using earthy tones for for the station track. So maybe they wanted it to be bright so that the train sticks out. And as you'll see if you bought one of our calendars, when you get later on in the year, that blue and yellow does look really nice against the green of the forest and the orange and earthy brown of the track.
Mm-hmm. And moving on from the wing coasters, I think another one that looks really, really good are in general is, I think, along the same lines with Lightning Rod, I think we've seen a really cool renaissance in wood coaster front lead cars. Yeah. That there's a whole bunch of them that you look at. Switchback last year at ZDT kind of like shocked people at IAAPA. because they're like, wow, look at this amazing lead car that has that black classic, engine on it. But then another one that I personally love that I think looks amazing is actually Rorosaurus with the big
Oh,
Triceratops on the front. How cool is that thing?
that, the Rorosaurus one is so neat looking. And I think that we've kind of seen that with the Timberliners a little bit because Wooden Warrior came out and it didn't really have anything special. Twister of Grönlund in Sweden is kind of generic. We saw Rorosaurus had this really cool Triceratops. Then we saw Switchback last year. Um, an IAPA with the train on the front, the locomotive, which really fits that theme perfectly. And the other one that's kind of lesser talked about is the Timberliners that are on Hades 360. It's actually got the Hades
Oh.
head with the flowing, flaming hair, which kind of looks cool. Now that's a lot simpler. That's not the entire front of the train, but it's still something neat that you can do with that Zero car out there.
And don't forget about Choo Choo Lane out in Ireland has that
Choo-choo.
whole like human on the front almost.
The muscular guy on the front. He's like,
Mm-hmm. Like
he's going through all. Yeah.
it's so cool, because and what's cool about it is like they can basically do anything that they want on those. That they've proven that they can do anything they want. That they've just
Sure.
run the gamut, with what they can do. So I think that's really cool, with the wood coasters. Are there any other ones that you have off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, an easy one to kind of talk about. Oh, well, yeah.
Like
Um,
I'll tell you what, I love Magnum's cars. Now Magnum's cars
very, very
have gotten a little cheaper in recent years, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but back when Magnum first opened, all the side pieces on each car were actually 3D pieces. Like if you think of like because if you remember back in the day, Magnum is actually modeled off of a stormtrooper. I don't know if many people realize that it's stormtrooper armor. And back in the day, at the entrance, when they used to have the big painted signs, like with the characters, it was actually a stormtrooper looking character that was the height sign. And you got to the station then, and you have these stormtrooper looking trains. And so they used to have molded pieces on the side of them. In recent years, those molded pieces have become stickers, which is kind of upsetting. But they're stickers now. But the front car is still pretty cool with like the space shuttle looking design.
yeah.
I think Magnum's one of those classic rides that still has a really cool train, especially when that white train shooting down that track looks awesome.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Magnum cars or something, and hopefully, a lot of talk about Magnum maybe getting new trains in the coming years, and that's even if it does, I hope that they kind of keep that feel with it and keep that I want to say futuristic, but really it's that 1980s futuristic feel
Yeah.
to it. But Magnum is a really great example. To kind of go along with what you were talking about with Rorosaurus and how we've seen the wood coasters, I think most people have kind of come out and said that in general, Rocky Mountain has done a pretty good job of doing different things for their trains. So Outlaw Run was it looked like a stagecoach where they had a bit more of it. They didn't have much of anything going on in the Zero car. It was open. And then they built Goliath at Great America. And they put all the armor and plating on it. Go ahead.
Or originally, Outlaw Run was supposed to have a lead car. If you look at all the concept art, it was supposed to have a front to it, and they didn't get around to putting it on there. And I remember Daniel and Devin and Brian talking about Media Day, and the park just decided we're not going to put it on there because people liked the openness of it. They thought that it really increased it made that first row seat even more exciting because you had nothing to hold on to. He literally, I remember Daniel telling stories of how he's holding on to the sides of the cars and stuff.
Well, and it's like, yeah, the first drop is really awesome in the back of Outlaw Run, but I think the best seat on Outlaw Run is the front seat, and I think the openness and the feeling of vulnerability is part of that. But then, Rocky Mountain built Goliath at Great America, which is up at your park, and they had, even on the wheel covers, they had like the armor plating, and it looked like the gladiator type feel, which goes along with the logo. So I think that always looked, looked really nice. Some of the older RMCs that had Gerstlauer trains like New Texas Giant and Iron Rattler specifically, the fact that the rat actually fell off of the snake once, that's kind of interesting. The train was running around without a rattle in the back for a little bit, but RMC, even though they're using the same chassis for all their trains now, I think for the most part they're doing a pretty good job of kind of changing it up. I know Wicked Cyclone and Medusa Steel Coaster kind of have the same style of thing. Twisted Colossus has a little bit of different curves, but it looks a lot like Goliath at Great America, but it's got the steampunk feel as opposed to the gladiator feel. We haven't seen a whole lot of the Joker yet, but we expect to see a big Joker head on the front there. Wildfire over at Colmarden is supposed to have a sort of a rustic, logger type of feel to it as well. I think, like you said, the wood coasters in general, I think now that it's, we're not just seeing the standard box PTC trains coming out with the logo on the front and maybe some waves on the side. We're really seeing, with Gravity Group and Gravity Craft making their own trains now, we're seeing unique stuff there. RMC's making their own trains there. Even Great Coasters. I mean, Great Coasters doesn't do a whole lot of really elaborate ornamental doodads on their trains, but they usually do a nice thing on the front with the ride name or the ride logo, and they usually have some nice colors. Like Vodon Timber Coaster, they actually did a lot of ornamental stuff on the sides of the trains. They had like dragon heads and they had some extra wings. But for the most, like Ozark Wildcat, they had the eyes on the front, which looked pretty cool. Renegade and Gold Striker and Thunderhead, they have like that gunmetal, like bolted, riveted feel on the front with the names. So they've done cool stuff with that sort of stuff as well.
Well, even at IAAPA, we saw this year that, even PTC is getting involved in it now, where they had that really cool eagle cutout. Like it's not like fully 3D, but it was just cut out steel and like laid out to make it look like an eagle. And that looked really cool. We thought that was going to Dorney for Thunderhawk, but in fact it's not. That we got something completely different at Dorney.
Well, the thing with Dorney is Dorney's getting a train that PTC has had out for a while. It's basically the same train that they've had before, except it's got an open front. It's got AG front, sort of like how Great Coasters has sort of like the cage on the front. Like Gwazi was a good example where they had like the cutouts of grass and trees and then the tiger stripes when they put the Millennium on Gwazi. They had, not so much ornamental add-ons, but they had really nice colors and they had some nice lines on the front. They've done, in general, I think they've done some nice stuff. Nothing outrageous, I don't think. But they've done some cool things at least with their lead cars, their zero cars, so to speak, and the cages on the front. And it still gives you that open feel, which is nice. And a nice ornamental aspect. The other one that I wanted to mention that kind of got lost in the jumble because it's so far away from us, but we talked about the flying manta at SeaWorld. We have to talk about the manta clone in Japan called Acrobat because it's got the big bat on the front. And come on, you said you wanted to talk about this one too. You get to talk about a Raptor. I'll talk about a... Oh boy.
You know what though? Besides that one, another classic aero coaster that I think gets lost in the mix in a lot of times is Demon. The one at Six Flags Great America has some cool airbrushing on it, but the one out in California actually has a cool three. Yeah.
Demon in the feels. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's really cool. Like, there are just so many, like, cool, like I love that on coasters. Like, it's nice to have the airbrushing. It's nice to have a good paint job. But when you have that extra element on it, I just think it makes it feel so much better. The stickers kind of like, I don't know, they kind of seem generic to me. I'm not a big fan. Like, people were saying, like, Fury And there's nothing about Fury that I really love about the car.
Fury looks nice, I mean, with the colors and everything, but at the end of the day, Fury is the generic B&M hypercoaster train with a really nice logo and really nice colors, and it's all just slapped on there, like kind of like we talked about with Leviathan at the beginning.
Yeah.
Leviathan looks awesome, but the thing with Leviathan is it's your standard B&M hypercoaster train with just a decal wrapped around it, whereas with Mako, you're seeing it molded. Diamondback, you see parts of it molded. Even like Lightning Rod, it's not just this. It's not just like a box that is painted to look like a hot rod. Actually molded so it really does look like a hot rod. Accelerator, same thing. It looks like the actual car. Top Thrill Dragster years ago when it still had the spoiler and the motor and the wheels on the back. The whole train looked like a really long Top Fuel Dragster because you have the pointed nose and the spoiler, and now they've added seats back there so you don't get that anymore. But that's it's little attentions to detail like that. It's easy to paint something on there. It's easy to just get a sticker, and it's a really nice look. Like the Six Flags parks, the Batman rides. Yeah, it's easy to put the Batman logo on the side of your wheel hoods and say, "Oh, look, it's the Batman ride."
Well, it's
just because you paint it yellow.
It doesn't.
Batman logo.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because, like, I don't know if you know this, but the Batman ride at Six Flags Great America for most of the season last year was running without wheel hoods. So
yeah, the one at Great America just doesn't like to run with wheel hoods a lot.
No,
I've seen that. I don't know what the reasoning for that is, but maybe they were too lazy.
It was ever since they had it go backwards, and then when they took the backwards off and they put the train back the way it's supposed to be. Like I almost wonder if they sent the wheel hoods with the backwards chassis and didn't have enough.
Crap, we did it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. No, that's an interesting point. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that we really missed that come out to. I mean, some of the mine trains look cool because they got locomotives, but we kind of touched on that with Switchback. I still think Switchback looks much better than most of them. So, but I mean, this is something we've seen going on for years. You know which one we haven't seen because the rendering is so terrible? I have a spreadsheet up of parks I'm trying to go to this year, and it just occurred to me. You know what cars we haven't seen yet?
Storm
Chaser.
Yeah, Storm Chaser. We haven't seen anything.
Because the rendering was a really poor No Limits 1 model with the old Morgan Manufacturing wood coaster train, so we have no idea what that is actually going to look like. So I don't know. That's interesting. And Valraven, I mean, that looks like it's just going to be a generic dive coaster train.
Yeah, all the dive coasters are pretty much standard for the most part, right? Like there's not really much variation there.
No, it's just really stickers and, colors at that point, really. I mean, for the most part, they don't have a whole lot of special ornamental doodads going on there on the dive coasters. So same thing, kind of like the floorless coasters. When you have a floorless coaster, there's not really a whole lot to do with it. So it's tough to really make stuff look like. It's really tough to put extra stuff on that. The hyper coaster that's probably seen the most done to it is that Hollywood Dream Ride because it's got the giant nose on the front because it's got to house all the lighting hardware and the speakers because the seats have onboard audio and the lap bars have a heart rate monitor on them, so they have to house all that crap. So they have a humongous big zero car nose piece there that's just really, really it almost looks obnoxious. It looks really awkward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are there any other ones that are coming to your mind?
I know we had a bunch of people talk to us on the different places about stuff, and I think we've covered most of like a lot of the suggestions that they made is stuff that we've covered already. And because we did a pre-show and talked about those decisions, and that really I know things like Cheetah Hunt like didn't jump into my mind until I saw them posted on the different forums. But I think we've covered most of what people have said.
Yeah, I think so, and I'm just gonna run off and just kind of mention everyone who kind of gave us some input because, like you said, there were some that came up that we didn't really think of. Trenton Wilkin, Kenny Galanti, Richard Steele, Marty Schuler, Bob Chatham, Eddie Frost, and Gary Walkowiak were all in the Wood Coaster Connoisseurs. Another one, the two Intimidators, even though they're simple, they did make them look like the race car. Those don't impress me as much because,
No.
again, they're just stickers and decals. But then again, that's what the race cars are. They're just
I
decals.
know.
So so there's that. Let's see here. Let's see who else was in here. Sean Coates, Ryan Wilcox, Henry Zhu, Andy Kowalczyk, my aunt Sue Werkheiser, Jonathan Chester Pitt, Adam Beard, and Matt Summers from Yorkshire. He mentioned the Space Mountain at Disneyland Paris. Have you seen those trains?
Yeah.
Those are really cool. So that's a good one. Caracho, a Trips Drill, is a kind of a launched Eurofighter that's got a really neat industrial thing. It reminds me of the queue of Wildfire at Silver Dollar City, where it's got like the headlights, sort of like Hulk, but it's much more rustic, where it's got like the headlight sort of thing.
You know what? You know what one just jumped to my mind is Untamed. Yeah, that's really cool one.
That one's really cool too. Yeah, you're right about that. That's a cool one. And on that note, Iron Shark at Galveston Historic Pleasure Pier. That's like a shark too. Now again, it doesn't have the lines of a shark like the Mako train does, but they did kind of try there. And then Bedholm, Mr. Chester, and Ryan Shrout on the COASTER-net forums. Ryan Trout was the one he actually posted the picture of the Rorosaurus train, which I'm looking at. That just looks so cool. So we had all those people give us some input. So thank you to all of those folks, because certainly we wouldn't have remembered and came up with all of these on our own for sure. You know what another good one is? It fits. What? You're gonna laugh at me and you're gonna hate me for mentioning it, but I think it does fit the theme. Flying turns. Because Kenny Galanti wrote that in, so I can say it's not me. But, I mean, it looks like the old style with the mono wing. Yes? No?
Oh, stop.
And it's got the rudder up the back.
Get out of here. Yeah. Get out of here.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Well, before we leave you this evening, I think we should mention that you do have a few days left here to submit your Thrillin' 32 brackets. Only a few days, because we are collecting them when?
We are going to cut. So if I believe we're going to try and get this show out on Friday the 26th.
Yeah.
So if it may come out a little earlier, but that's the latest that I think it's going to come out. So if you're watching it then, you have until Sunday the 28th by the end of the night. Once the clock turns over to Leap Day, February 29th, that's when we're kind of cutting it off because Andy and I we have to start filming some shows, and we have to know who our winners are going to be by the time we record these final shows here as we reveal our winners. Letting you in behind the scenes here, we've already done one of those shows. So we know who's moving on to the Sweet 16 in each bracket, but you folks don't yet. So hopefully you guys are having fun picking your brackets, and hopefully once we start recording these shows, you'll have your dumpster fire ready over there to throw your brackets into, because I'm, not trying to give anything away. Some brackets have been very good. Some have been very bad. but that's the fun, right? I don't think, I don't think there's, I mean, we're having a lot of fun with this, and I'm enjoying watching them come in day after day, and seeing it's amazing how different people think when they're trying to predict what other people voted on and not go by themselves. Some people are going by their own list, some are going off of golden ticket lists, some people are just taking shots in the dark, and for some people it's working and others it's not. So you have 2 days to get those in by the end of February. We want those February 28th. If it comes in on the 29th, I might give it to you, but once we get into March, that's gonna be it. So get them in by the end of February, and we'll have our winners. The winner or winners, fabulous COASTER-net Uncut prize pack on the line. What do we got? T-shirts and a calendar.
Calendar. Yeah. Oh yeah, calendar right back there.
There's your calendar, and I believe we're also going to have Matt Summers from Yorkshire. He's going to be pitching in a little bit of a prize, a little coaster track piece mirror hanger. I believe we've talked with him about that. So he's been helping us along with getting some European folks involved, which has been great. And then also, the winners will, as you've said, have the chance to sit amongst greatness and will be allowed to come on for an episode of COASTER-net Uncut, and we'll talk about a topic of their choosing. Now, we're not just going to let you come on and surprise us. We're going to have to talk to you beforehand about what the topic is so we can kind of form a show around it last year. We did that last year with our winner, Jenny, who obviously big Cedar Point fan, big Millennium Force fan. We used that to talk about Cedar Point opening day and opening weekend because that was something she had attended, got her thoughts on Rougarou. You were out there as well. So we got to kind of form a show. That's the kind of thing we'll end up doing with that. So I think that'll be a lot of fun to do again. So get your brackets in, and you might just be a big winner or a big wiener.
Well, as always, thank you for joining us here on COASTER-net Uncut. I am, of course, Andy Robarchuk from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
And as always, right on, Ride Warriors.
See you next time, folks.